أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Welcome to Civil Noor weekly Quran study. We're continuing to journey on related topics in the Quran, and as usual, Dr. Yamina will be leading the session. And as usual, we highly encourage you to join in the discussion with your comments and questions. So without further delay, I'll turn to Dr. Yamina. Jazakallah khair.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So we always ask you to participate as much as possible, inshallah. But today I particularly ask you to participate. One reason is what I want to emphasize will only be emphasized, and to the extent that you participate. When we participate, we learn. The one who asks questions or comments or reflects actively as anything is being shared is the one who is going to benefit the most. And when you benefit and share how you are benefiting, then everyone benefits from it. And that's the blessing of being together. And inshallah, not just listening, but well, let's say actively listening. Even if we want to listen, let's listen actively, inshallah. So I want to start with a hadith that you may have heard because it is referred to and mentioned, especially in khutbahs and in when people are preaching, scholars are preaching. And this hadith, in this hadith, the Messenger of God, alayhi salatu wassalam, we are told that he said, whoever relieves the hardship of a believer in this world, God will relieve his hardship on the day of resurrection, Yawm al-Qiyamah. And whoever helps ease one in difficulty, Allah will make it easy for him in this world and in Akhirah, in the hereafter. And whoever conceals the fault of a Muslim, God will conceal his fault in this world and in the hereafter. And God helps the servant, al-abd, as long as he helps his brother. And whoever seeks a path in search of ilm, of knowledge, God will make easy for him a path to paradise. It carries on also, we're told people do not gather in the houses of God, reciting the book of God and studying it. Here studying is yatadarasun, meaning not one person is teaching the others, but they are learning from each other and teaching each other. There is an interactive meaning to this verb. So, people do not gather in the houses of God, reciting the book of God, meaning the Quran, and studying it together, but that tranquility will descend upon them. Mercy will cover them, angels will surround them, and God will mention them to those near him. Whoever is slow to good deeds will not be hastened by his lineage. And I don't think we'll have the time to go through everything, but at least in we can think of the first part. For instance, you help ease someone in difficulty and God will make it easy for you in this world and in the hereafter, in akhirah. You seek a path to knowledge, and God will ease for you a path to paradise. How do you feel, or what is your response, your reaction when you hear this? First, let's start from there so I don't assume anything, inshallah. You hear this, we are told here, if you help a believer, God helps you on the day of judgment. You ease someone in hardship, God will make it easy on you in this world and in the hereafter. You seek a path to knowledge, God will ease for you a path to paradise, or ease you onto a path to paradise.
Honestly, Dr. Yamina, the first thing comes to my mind was that I don't do this. Or at least not enough, covering somebody's fault, my initial thing was like how guilty I am of not doing it, and then something in me really felt it would be beautiful if I did this more often, that I cover up people's faults, I relieve people in stress. You want us to go somewhere further, but
it's okay. It's okay. Anything is, alhamdulillah. Thank you for sharing. Yes, please. I'm waiting.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Nertila.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
What I am getting or reflecting is the active part. So it's we are required to act and to do. So yes, the belief, yes, but then there are practical things, tangible things, that needs to be done as well. So we do our part. We try, to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ease probably the hardship of a believer anyway, right? But what's required of us to, to do our part, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us opportunity also to get closer to Him and to give us even more rahmah. I don't know, some things.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else, inshallah? This is the Prophet, ﷺ, the messenger of God speaking.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I think this is one, when you were reading the hadith, I felt this is wonderful news. It's a delight to hear that and to be reminded of that. Also, and I haven't investigated this reaction yet, but a gut reaction of mine I had is also that this is a social person's paradise, an extrovert's paradise, that helping people and covering their faults and so forth, and seeking knowledge and education is a very active lifestyle and an active tendency to engage with others, that I used to think it was a universal human tendency, but apparently it's an extrovert or a person who's a social butterfly tendency more than an introvert, for example. And I think it would be their paradise. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I'll get back to it, inshallah. Thank you. Alhamdulillah.
I just want to say something, if I may. Thank you for sharing that, Maha. One thing that came to my mind was almost opposite, because And that's interesting because, for instance, in covering up somebody's fault, sometimes what is needed is just being quiet and not and so I can think of moments where I spoke too much, I said too much, and that could be connected to my being at that moment. I'm not a particularly extrovert person, but at that moment I was outspoken maybe, but that didn't help in hiding somebody's fault. Or so, and also helping too. I mean, we could help people without being extrovert. Maybe they are quieter about it.
Yeah, it's like, it reminds me of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. From what we learn about his personality, he doesn't seem to be as extrovert as some other Sahabis. Yet, when the Prophet ﷺ, for instance, once before the morning prayer, he asked them, "What have you done?" And they said, like, it's early morning, like it's dawn, and we are just starting the day. But Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he had already visited someone and helped someone else. And so I can imagine lots of people who are quieter could be doing things quietly, going directly to what needs to be done without being talking about things or being particularly a social person as we would imagine. So to me also, it doesn't seem to be related to particularly being an introvert or an extrovert. It's more to do with the intention to act accordingly.
But at least, I guess, maybe Maha wanted to highlight this. At least it should be somebody who cares about other people. So somebody who
cares
about nobody, like
But is that being
maybe introvert is a word, but there are some people who just actually don't care about other people, or don't want to associate with any type of people, or just be so maybe, yeah, in that sense, yes, it wouldn't work for those attitudes.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else raised hand, please go ahead, Naima.
Oh, Assalamu alaikum. When I hear this hadith, I think about character, and I think character, like exercising your character, good character, would be what drives you as to whether you're going to help someone in hardship or keep whatever their secrets are with yourself. And so whether or not you're extrovert or introvert, it's more of the character, and like the sister said, also the intention with the character. That's what I think about when I hear that, the hadith.
Thank you. So remember what in the hadith we are told not only to help, but we are also told there is the first part that looks to us, and the second part, for instance, to help, to ease someone in hardship, to seek a path to knowledge. And there is another path, which is God. When you help someone, God helps you on the day of judgment. When you ease someone in hardship, God will make it easy on you in this world and in the hereafter. When you seek a path to knowledge, God will ease for you a path to paradise. What do you, how do you feel about this second part?
Please.
It makes me think that God wants us, is planning. I mean, this is a plan to urge people to engage with others and to pay attention to other people's plights and feelings or conditions. Because first of all, it takes active listening and presence to be aware of someone's fault and to make a decision to cover their fault. It also requires some kind of social engagement or again, presence to help someone. If I'm isolated or self-focused and busy with myself, how would I know what other people need or their issues or problems and how I can help? And even though God of course is the helper of all, this hadith pushes us seems to want to push us out of our comfort zone or out of our bubble, to be out there engaging with people in a meaningful way, to know their deep issues, rather than to be on a shallow level or to be on a chit-chat, small talk that doesn't lead to genuine help, especially with the covering fault. That takes a deeper and a more sophisticated approach. First to see the fault and then to make the intention to cover it in a meaningful, helpful way for them.
And okay, so what do you think is the wisdom in this? From what you said, I understand this as an encouragement, an incentive to act mindfully, compassionately, help each other, engage each other, be present with each other, and get out of our bubbles of self-absorption. So we can think of lots of good things that will happen to us from there, but how is this related to God and to Akhirah? And how do I understand it's an incentive, it's an encouragement, that's what I'm hearing. At the same time, what is the connection between me helping someone now, here, and God helping me in the hereafter? How, yes?
One thing that comes to me is that when I first hear this, my first response is, wow, this is so important, because we have an instinct to help. It's given to us. We feel good when we help. Yes. That's given. But when I hear the hadith, the first initial response that comes to me is to say that, wow, this is bigger than I thought, because this is going to be remembered at a day. Nothing else will be of value. Your career, your degrees, this, that, nothing. All of it is kind of redundant in that day, except your record of how you have behaved before God. And so God will relieve you when you relieve your brother. That is, as you said, is a major incentive, and not just a major incentive, but highlights how important this is. And the question, of course, is why is it so important? But the initial level is to recognize, wow, this is much more important than I thought. And it also helps with the fatigue. And that's, again, connected to being encouraged by this kind of reference to God's reward in the Day of Judgment. Because as much as we are made in a way to care about each other, there can be a fatigue. Am I going to solve this person's problem, I'm going to look away from this kind of rudeness and do this, do that. So at some point, the ego, in its very narrow vision, it says me, and I'm tired of trying to look out for other people. That fatigue can kick in, and when we hear the hadith like this, it is saying, well, no, it's much bigger than you think, and the stakes are much higher. And again, the question is, why is that so? Why? Because at the end of the day,
because at the end of the day, as Maha said, or even before, someone else also mentioned, God is the helper of all.
and He's the one who puts that person in that hardship, and then
Yet we,
tells you,
we're concerned, we have to engage in this, actively engage in this helping.
yeah, yeah. So there's need to reflect more. I have seen Hatija Beyza raising her hand earlier. Do you still want to share something? And then Nertila, I think, is on.
Please, yes.
Assalamu alaikum. This
Wa
is
alaikum salam.
this is more of a general comment and question. For one thing, in regards to hadith in general, you know, I wonder if we can also potentially touch upon like how to approach such a text.
We'll talk about it, inshallah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
that's a good point. Please carry on.
Right. So that was my first initial, like the general.
What came to your, what brought this to your mind? What did you think of?
Of the actual hadith itself, content-wise?
No, like you said, we need to bear in mind how to approach such text.
Right, because like I guess in the nature of what makes a hadith, I have to take into consideration, I guess, my understanding of the necessity of the institution of messengership and the messenger himself as well, so that I can try to put this into its proper context. I don't have a lot of practice or understanding in how to read hadith in general. So this is just, you know, before I even delve in, that's one big question mark and dilemma that I have within me. And then I have more content wise as well. But if you want, I can just stop here for now.
So you mean we said many times that when we read the Quran, Imam Nursi, rahimahullah, mentions this. Who is speaking in order to understand the text? Who is speaking? For what purpose? Why? For what purpose? To whom, of course, here it's to us, but to us as ibadullah, as believers, as people who are on a certain path. So it's not only, the Prophet is not speaking to anyone, he's speaking to someone who is already engaged. Even if we are at the threshold, even if we're at the very beginning, we already have, at least in our intention, a certain directionality, a certain istiqamah. And so what you're saying here is who is speaking is the messenger of God. It means it's not Muhammad as Bashar, as a human being, but it's Muhammad as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's speaking here as a messenger who came here to guide us. So we have to keep that in mind. And for what purpose? What is the purpose of the Prophet? Is to lead us back to the Quran, to understand the Quran, to practice it. And usually it's like here it's giving us something very practical, something that we can go and start practicing tomorrow, inshallah. And that will be it could be our homework, inshallah. Does it make sense? And then, of course, comes, as you said, the content. But unless we keep those who is speaking and for what purpose in mind, then the content we could remain. For instance, here it's talking about akhirah, about God, and we still have not talked about how it is connected to akhirah and to God. It's not, which means, to me, it means it's not obvious, but we cannot just take it for granted. It's not as, if it were just obvious, then there would be no need for this guidance, right? Don't you think so?
Are you asking me?
you or anyone. Yes.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, it can't be something that which I already know, but something that I can confirm. I do have a question about what you shared. So you said that as the reader of this particular text, it's speaking to me as someone who's already, at least with their intentions, engaged on a certain path, on a certain destination, at least. So like this, I'm sorry if I'm like distracting us from the actual content, but read the Quran addresses me as a human being, but in my interaction with the hadith, is it more like it's addressing me as one who...
Now, in the Quran, sometimes it talks to believers, and the others are like the side audience, and sometimes it talks about all people directly. And so it is with the hadith, that in this hadith, and generally, if we are listening to the messenger of God, we are already, unless we listen to him as the messenger of God, what we are reading won't be hadith, right? It will be a word. It could be a word of wisdom. It could be, anyone could say, help people, be kind to them. But he's not just saying help people, be kind to them. He's saying help them, and Allah will help you in the hereafter. He's adding something. So what he's saying, and as we are told in the Quran, he's not speaking of his own wisdom or his own will. He's being inspired. He's guiding us. The messenger of God speaks to us in order to help us understand the message of the Quran, and to guide us to be able to testify to its truthfulness, to be able to practice it and live accordingly. So we need to keep that in mind. What I understood, what you said, and that's very, very important. When we keep that in mind, then we start reading and approaching the hadith in a different way. It is not there just to tell us things that we already know. It is definitely giving us good news, like in the Quran. But there is something else. It is showing us the way to how to, in practicing what it's saying, for instance, in helping the other, we need to also be able to say, yes, this hadith, I practice it and it is true. How can I say I practice it and it is true? Since I can practice the first half, how about the second half? The second half looks to God, looks to Akhirah, to the hereafter. That's why it's important to keep in mind what a hadith is and what hadith is for. What is the purpose of the hadith as well? Not only who is speaking, but for what purpose he's speaking to us. That's what makes him the messenger. And so he's speaking as the messenger of God. He's taking us back to God, back to our to the purpose of our creation, to the purpose of why we are being here on earth. So how is that related to helping others or seeking knowledge? How is seeking knowledge related to paradise, for instance? Anyone?
Assalamu alaikum again.
Wa alaikum salam. Please go ahead.
For the second part, right, in all of them, what is being emphasized, what I'm getting, I think, is the relationship part. Because usually even we are in a relationship, you know, I'll do this for you and somebody will do something for me, right? So, it just, you know, brings part that we are kind of interconnectedness in the world. And then when you do, let's say, when you conceal the faults of a Muslim, which concealing, if I'm is one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you practice that, when you put that, when inshallah we try to put that into practice, we are, you know, trying to emulate, you know, some, I'm not sure what is the correct word, trying to demonstrate, like, you know, how that will be in practice. And so a little bit of interconnectedness with everyone, and the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and us being an instrument, you know, through which you know, this beautiful qualities are happening. Not sure, I'm not being very articulated, sorry.
There's something there. Yeah, I think. Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Something is coming up.
Yeah, connection to beautiful names. Yeah.
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah, that's very, very important, inshallah. Anything else?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Okay. Bismillah. I think what comes to mind when I hear this hadith or say it, and it's actually kind of been more recently where I feel like I'm getting drawn to, you know, understanding it at least a little more than I did before. To me, especially the part of like covering faults, I feel like we're like, it's a reminder, or it's like Allah is allowing us to get a taste of divine understanding in a sense, because my covering of someone's fault is what God is doing for me all the time if I'm in a state of awareness. And so it's like that manifestation, that act of Allah, of his like graciousness and mercy, is something that I can, not like me, but like it's flowing through me. Is it manifests itself when I'm able to do that with others that I see. And that's what will be the difference of like getting, you know, my understanding of like is entering paradise. It's this this aspect of God as the merciful, the like the overlooker of faults. And so it makes, and also in the way if I, you know, when I think about practicing this, if I'm overlooking someone's faults, I'm reminded of how God overlooks my faults, and how without that, you know, where would I be? And so it also makes me realize my weakness and my neediness, and that makes me feel more compassion for my fellow human beings. Like it takes away the difference that we're all underneath this power who's overlooking faults, who's granting ease to hardships. And so our doing that is also manifesting these like the beautiful names as well. So that's how I've started thinking about this.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, I think this is parallel to what Nurtila was also saying. Thank you for articulating it even more clearly. Anyone wants to add to this? We're getting somewhere. Something is coming up. Some light is coming up. In the beginning, it seems like totally unrelated. Like I am helping someone. Allah is helping me. Okay. Someone may say, but God is merciful and he's powerful over all things. So if he says so, it must be right. Okay, but in this, I have no way to actually testify that it is true. I am hoping that it is true. My belief in God and my belief in Akhirah are taken for granted. I'm assuming, or as much as I believe in God and know Him as the merciful, the concealer of fault, the helper, to that extent, and to the extent that I believe in Akhirah, I can say, okay, God is saying this, so it must be true. And this is correct. So then I can accept, or we can accept and testify to the truth of this hadith to the extent that we already believe in God and in Akhirah. It's one step. But now from what has been shared, there is something else coming up. And maybe a question we can ask ourselves is, if there is nothing more, if I have to rely on my already existing belief in God and Akhirah to say, well, if it is in the hadith or in the Quran, then it must be correct. And we know that God is powerful and merciful. So I am accepting, but I am not testifying to the truth of this particular statement, whether it's a hadith or in other, sometimes it is an ayah. So is this approach satisfactory for you? Is it enough? Maybe a question I would ask myself, and I'm sharing it with you. If we now we had some cues about that there is actually a relationship. There is a relationship between my concealing the faults of someone and God concealing our faults, all of us, and especially as far as I'm concerned, which each one of us is concealing my faults all the time. Mm-hmm. And so I get to appreciate his concealing my fault. And so I get to also, what Zahra was saying, realize how vulnerable I am, how needy I am. And so my empathy with others is going to be more acute, is going to increase. And so it will become easier and easier. I won't have to make an effort to conceal the fault of others. It will become like almost the more I am aware that God can conceal my faults, it will become like an inclination, a second nature, that we want to conceal the faults of others. And we'll become more sensible, more, how do you say? Yeah, like that character in us will be easier to cultivate it, because there is a strong identification with it. So we won't look at others from judgmentally from above, because there is nothing in me to do that. So now, if we did not have this, if we only had what usually is like help, and God will help you in the hereafter. So there is God involved here, there is God helping me, and there is in the hereafter. So this second part, I can accept it if I already believe in God and in Akhirah. But how do I actually testify it if I don't have an awareness of that kind of relationship, for instance, with God, therefore with the names of God? For instance, here we talked about God concealing our faults with generosity, with mercy, with compassion. If it were only accept this and use your already existing belief in God and Akhirah and take the rest for granted. Would that, or is that satisfactory for you? I'm asking everyone. And I think it's important to look within ourselves and see, like, reflect and listen within us to our inner self. What do you find there? What's your response to this? Do you have any questions, or are you okay? Like, I'm okay with that, or how do you feel about it? Because if we are okay with it, then there is no need to carry on to find out anything more. Because it's like if someone feels full, we can put as much more food on the table or in the plate of the person. That person feels full. He's not going to eat it.
Dr. Yamina, one thing that comes to my mind when I hear after reference is the idea of being seen, because sometimes a part in me worries that that's my ego, worries that it's not visible, people don't see it, they won't take notice of it, or they forget, and so on. So when I hear this hadith, the first thing that comes to me is to say, well, even
people won't acknowledge me, acknowledge what I'm doing. In which sense?
The person, for instance, sometimes you have a person who has a fault and you're looking at that fault, but that person doesn't even realize he or she is making a mistake and being very rude.
I see.
Hold on, you are covering up, and looking away.
Or at least we think we are covering.
I mean,
usually we're covering up for ourselves.
The other person is also covering up my fault, but that's how it feels from my side. So, my ego side, I should say. So then to hear that this hadith, the first thing, I don't mean this is the most profound thing, but the first thing that comes to me is to say, well, it's okay if nobody else notices this, because it's being noticed. When something comes up in the day of judgment, in that day, that means it has been noticed and it will matter. Because if something matters only next year or in 5 years and doesn't matter afterwards, that's not, ego makes a big deal. Yes, but really, when we think for a moment, it doesn't really, it doesn't make a difference if something matters only next year or 5 years down the road, and that's it. If something matters in the day of judgment, it means, to me, it gives me the feeling of being extremely visible and noticed, that people may forget, or you may be tempted to look for immediate gains in this kind of kindness, but actually the most important thing is for it to be noticed in the day of judgment. And God is saying, when you do this for someone else, I am taking note, and it will be kept.
When you say for it to be noticed in the day of judgment, you mean it is being noticed right now, right? Because the day of judgment is for me. Yeah. As far as the one who is noticing,
it's noticed here, because
right now.
Therefore, that being seen, which name of God is Basir? Like, that comes to me, that He sees deep into me, and it doesn't matter if other people don't see. And then that's the first thing that comes.
So, what's your answer to? Is it enough to understand the hadith as okay, God is merciful? It could be we are told things like this in the Quran as well, like help and God will give you this, will reward you. So is it enough to say, okay, God is merciful, he says so, therefore it must be right? carry on. Let's go and help other people, because if I help people, then I will be rewarded. And is this enough for us?
So is the question, I'm also trying to understand the question.
Yes.
So is the question, how does this hadith enable the believer to confirm God and paradise?
In a way, we could say that, but in order to articulate it the way you're saying, we're already getting past the first level, which is usually when we're telling people, oh, people, like, help, you have to help. Look at what the Prophet ﷺ said. He said, help the others, conceal their faults. And of course, when we are told this, we hear the second part, but it is mentioned, but we don't always hear it. We hear it in the sense of, oh, like, I will help people, God will help me in the hereafter. This is a good deal. Or I'd better help as much as I can. And we see it as a social enterprise, a social institution, which it is. But what happens to the akhirah part? Mostly people will say, well, God is merciful and he will reward us in akhirah. And so, of course, then what you are saying is correct. Then if I'm saying this, I am not testifying to the truth of this hadith. It means my relationship with this guidance, because it is guidance if it is the messenger of God who is saying it. It is guidance if it is an ayah from the Quran, and you can find many passages of the Quran when not explicitly like this, but they go parallel with this meaning that if you do something here, God will give you something similar in the hereafter. And we say, okay, like God said it, therefore, but we are not confirming, and we are not confirming this guidance. If it is God speaking or the messenger of God speaking, then it is guidance. It means they are telling us to do this, and in that doing, we have to find that doing is going to be the way to testify that it is true. At the end, I'll say, yes, I tried it and it is true. How do I try it? Of course, you and some of us has just mentioned, but unless we go there and we just, is it enough to just say, people usually are not even talking about testifying to the truth of this. This is God or the messenger of God is saying it, we will go and do it. But are we doing it when we are not testifying the akhirah part in it, the God giving us something in akhirah in it? Wouldn't that only remain as a hope?
There's a comment here in the chat box that says,
go ahead.
It says, just to remain in that level of, I will do this and it will be noticed and I will be rewarded for it. It sounds like a transactional relationship. If I say I'll do this, so I'll be rewarded. And so it's not a satisfying place to be, to say I will do this and I will get reward for this only, and stay in that level. And I find it very interesting that Dr. Yamina, you're saying that if we remain there, it's not only it's not fulfilling ultimately, but also that it's not, we're not really applying the hadith, because hadith puts emphasis on the day of judgment and before God. And yet, if we are in this transactional mode only, then somebody can come along and say, well, let's take away the God part and just be nice. I agree it's harder to be nice, you can get fatigue and, ego can come in. It's harder, easier said than done, but still, we haven't fully maybe understood the hadith or actualized it.
The transaction part from one aspect is there. You can say at one level it's there, but like, is it sufficient? Would we have truly not only read the hadith, but performed it and practiced it? We would have practiced some of it, definitely, but is that what the hadith or what the Quran speak about only? Isn't believing in God and believing in Akhirah the most important pillars of belief? And isn't all our practices are there to ground that belief and nurture it and nourish it? So how is this practice of helping the others, concealing their faults? We did talk about it, but unless there is a connection to the beautiful names in our action here and now, then it will remain always disconnected. And so we would have applied only half of the hadith, and then the most important part of the hadith, I mean, the purpose of doing that was for God, was for Akhirah, would be not totally missing, but not emphasized. It means, I feel like, if in each transaction, in each event, in each interaction in the world, I always rely on an already existing belief in God and Akhirah. And if that particular event and interaction does not increase my belief in God and Akhirah, then how is it we're told in the Quran everything is an ayah? It means everything is a sign indicating God, reflecting Wajh Allah, the countenance of God and his beautiful names. It means I'm missing that. Everything is a means, everything is whatever exists, whatever is created is making tasbih, and we are asked to make tasbih with them. I am not making tasbih as I am acting. How do I act in the name of God and making tasbih with my action and interacting with everything as ayah if I can't, if I have not learned to connect in everything? Then in everything I will have to say, oh, God is merciful, inshallah, he will give us, which is correct, but like, that's to start with. I can't always stay at that level. So that's why I ask, is staying there satisfactory? Because the second approach that I want to emphasize, that we've always been emphasizing, but I wanted to also wanted us to see the difference, because unless we grasp the differences, we cannot appreciate this second connected approach. Then it will feel like everyone is saying the same thing. They're talking about the same hadith. You do good things, you help the others. It's wonderful news, and it is all correct. But there are more wonderful news are the news related to God being involved in that action in my doing it, and it is, and I am given the promise that it will be done unto me in this world and in the next. Something wonderful is going on here, but we need some more tools. So the second approach that inshallah we want to emphasize is that we keep in mind who is speaking and why he's speaking. That's from the beginning. And so we learn that the practice of helping others, the practice of concealing the fault of someone else is itself an ayah. That interaction is an ayah. It is a sign. It is an indication to know God. For instance, you said, God is the concealer of faults. God is merciful. And He's my Rabb, because I realize that He is concealing my faults right now. And it is through concealing the faults of others and having the desire, I've been given the need and the desire to have my faults concealed, that I get to appreciate that name of God. That name of God is sweet. It is beautiful. It tastes good. My ruh, my heart, my soul thrives with it. It loves it. It longs for it. And so now we start knowing God with His beautiful names from each time from a new perspective. When I'm helping, I know Him as the helper, the merciful. When I am concealing someone faults, or someone else is concealing my faults, I know Him as a sattar, the concealer of faults, for instance. And so this helping others, this interacting with others becomes an opportunity to testify again and again each time, to testify, to make shahada, to our, and this affirm our belief in God, our belief in akhirah, because anything that looks to the beautiful names are eternal, and so they are not applicable only, they don't look only to this world, but to forever. And therefore, the interaction itself increases our iman. It strengthens our iman in God and in akhirah. It grounds it. And so the hadith, or if it is a passage from the Quran, the ayah of the Quran, would have fulfilled its purpose, which was to guide me to all this, to guide me back to God, to guide me back to myself, to my ubudiyah, and to finding His rububiyah within my ubudiyah. And we can apply this also, I think you can apply it, anyone, for the connection between seeking knowledge and a path to paradise. Because even religious knowledge, because I heard people saying, sorry, it is religious knowledge. But if it is connected, a knowledge of anything, a knowledge of ibil, the camels, will increase our belief in God and in akhirah. And if it is disconnected, even knowledge of the ayat of the Quran won't take us anywhere. So which one do we want to follow? Which approach do we want to follow? And can you see, do you feel still that they are similar? Are they the same? Or maybe, how about we share some differences between these two approaches? What are some of the differences? This is a question to everyone, inshallah.
Dr. Yamina, one thing
Yes.
that comes to my mind is that we have been talking when we started this fall season, one of the things we have talked was the idea of test and life of this world, or the zina of the ornaments of this life is test. And then we explored how that test is not simply for it to become revealed who we truly are. Are we doing the right or wrong? It's more about during that process of test in this life, we are having opportunity to grow and to transform. And this is something we explored with earlier discussions on Surah Kahf, and also more recently we discussed the Surah, was it Saf? That ended with Juma, the one that ended with
after, it comes after Saf, I think. Yes, the 61.
So this lines up with that nicely, because this distinction between, am I doing it only for the reward that I will be rewarded in the day of judgment, which, as you say, it's the first level, and it is fine.
And I cannot even confirm and testify that there will be a reward if I go with that approach. I will hope that there will be a reward. Since Allah is merciful and generous, inshallah, He will reward us.
Or if I have other reasons to trust the reward.
But in the second one, I will testify, I will see a glimpse of the reward here and now, and then I will know that this is the seed of the reward, this is the sign, the ayah of the reward that the ayah or the hadith is talking about.
So then in the first level, it seems to be basically a transaction. But with the next level, if I were to recap, I hear two things. One, to see the beautiful names of God manifesting on me, in the sense that, as what the sister said, we realize that somebody else is covering up my fault, right? I'm looking over this person's fault. And again, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't seek justice, or, that's all, as we have discussed many times before, that covering up somebody's fault doesn't mean accepting being bullied or facilitating bullying. We won't even get into that, but there are moments where we can cover up the fault. And when we're doing that, we can recognize that God is covering our faults all the time, and we're to be grateful, to recognize, to notice that, as Zahra was saying. And then other names of God, when we help, to see that we are helped by God all the time. And so that's one way of, I see these names already manifesting in me. They were always there, but I wasn't aware, as you always mention breathing, right? I'm always breathing, but I rarely notice it. So then even the capacity to breathe is a help, is I'm being taken care of. So that's one way of connecting to beautiful names of God, through this experience of helping. I remember that I am being helped. And then the other one is, as I am helping, instead of our ego hijacking this, saying, oh, I'm helping other people, we can recognize that the helper is flowing through us when we help someone. And so that when we notice that, then in the act of helping, it's not just about getting a reward that you did the right thing, the not selfish thing, but also we recognize, well, there's a helper that's manifesting through me, that
and that, of course, is the greatest reward, the bushra, the good news, because if he's the helper who is helping through me someone else now, then he is the helper who helps anyone anywhere, and he is the helper who is helping me now, and who will help me when I am in hardship anytime. So it has the good news in the connection itself, and I am the witness because it is flowing through me. And that's why the ayah about the akhirah, it's وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. There is a yaqeen of I am myself, like in a way, I am tasting, I am witnessing the name of helper is coming through me, manifesting itself through me, and I'm just looking and at all of how I am made to help someone. Sometimes I may not even know, never seen the person before. So I say, Subhanallah, yeah, clearly it is not from me. The more I pause and reflect, the more I make tasbih. Subhanallah, it is not from me. You helper. So that interaction becomes worship. I know I repeat this all the time, but I think it's key. Because unless I do this, I am not only doing a transaction. I am always, that transaction is always open to shirk. The shirk of, without realizing, the whole thing about shirk is that I'm not aware. Without realizing, it seems to me that I am the one helping. There are, of course, degrees. It could be that I am sacrificing my own money and giving it to others. And I am helping, so there. And there is another one when, because in the Quran, it's clearly said that وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, they give to others from what we provide for them. Then I say, okay, God provides me this, but it feels that I am sharing what God gave me, but I am the one sharing. I am the one helping. I am the one who is compassionate. Again, the door is wide open to shirk. So it's not only, we should not, it's better to not stay at that level. That level is dangerous because the doors to shirk are open, because I have not testified in the giving, in the concealing, in the helping. I don't see God, I don't see akhirah. I am using my previous knowledge of God and akhirah, applying it there. To start with, yes, but each transaction, each interaction is a new area, a new situation. God is also manifesting his beautiful names, his wajh, his countenance in that too. If I start skipping everything like that, then where is God? But when I see this as the transaction itself becomes the miracle, it is the mirror that reflects the beautiful names of God. It is a window or a door onto paradise, onto the world of the beautiful names of God. Here and now, a door to the ruh. It is each. How do you say it? It's conscious, mindful giving in the name of God, in the name of the helper, in the name of the provider, not in my name, giving his provision, not only money and wealth, but it could be giving a greeting, giving an advice, smiling, a kind word, kindness, anything, everything is coming from him, and with his, even the need and the desire to help is from him. So I become a witness. I witness and I look at myself, I look around me. And then when I see myself like this, then I can recognize when others are giving me or giving others, I can see the names, the beautiful names of God there. And so it becomes like, in a way also, that interaction is like a mi'raj. It takes me up to the realm of the beautiful names of God. And this is not an option. To how much I practice it is another matter, but to come to that level is unless I come to that level, there is no Tawheed is not completed, and it means the door is always open to potential shirk, and that's what comes to my mind is the Qudsi hadith when we are told that a man studied before after the studying, a man who was given was wealthy, he was given lots of wealth, and on the day of judgment he's asked, he's going to be taken to hellfire, and he said, but I gave lots of wealth and to what was the thing? To make known your favors, and God will tell him, we are told in the hadith, and it's a Qudsi hadith, you have spent the money for your own sake. You have lied. You did so so that it might be said, he's open-handed, he's generous. And people said it, and finished. That's it. People said he is generous, and finished. So this is an extreme one. But you can see that the giving in itself does not guarantee the reward. It's how we give, with what awareness, with what, I don't want to say with what intention, because intention is already an inner action. And it is, that intention is the mirror of our awareness. If I'm not aware that he's the helper, he's the giver when I give, then so my intention cannot change. Our intention will only change to the extent of our awareness. And that's why tafakkur, reflecting, is so important, because it's going to change the quality of our action. It's going to, we will become aware of the connection of everything to its infinite source.
And this really connects with the earlier discussion about how we can go out of the Jummah prayer, having taken some time, to the world and remember God often, as the Quranic passage invites us. It says, go out after the prayer. And we talked a lot, what does it mean to be in the world and to remember God? Because oftentimes we think where we're in the world, we're distracted from God. And you're saying that to see in these actions of good actions, like helping someone or being kind to someone, that if we can see through them and confirm the beautiful names of God, that is our key to remembering God and seeing his face, as the Quran says.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so, how does this sound? I'm curious, how does this sound?
Yeah, that's what I want to hear, because we want to feel, to see the differences. And the difference is huge. And
so what do you guys think? Dr. Yamina, that was a very strong statement, saying that it will remain in the first level of, I will do this, and then in return, God will do this to me generously in the day of judgment. To stay in that level is a dangerous level, that it's open to shirk. It's a very strong statement. I mean,
temporary. It's supposed to be a temporary level, not to stay there forever.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Comments, responses, questions? Go ahead, Hatice.
I think I agree in the sense that, you know, I think it's a pitfall that we kind of have to make that mistake in a way, in order to realize that first and foremost, what exactly am I doing that I'm getting rewarded for? Like, am I really actually doing it? Can I really qualify an achievement or some sort of accomplishment for myself that I deserve this reward? So that's one.
And what is the reward?
Right. And also, how
Like
does
the reward, is it a palace in paradise, for instance?
right? And the second thing was, what was I going to say? Oh, right. How does this feel like, as far as when I measure it up to my human, like what my humanness calls for, like just the, again, the transactional aspect of it, does that like really fit with me? Like, I'm being given something because I do this. How does that make me feel, like, as far as my human qualities are concerned, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? A while back, yes, please go ahead. The sister who has, or brother who has the hand up, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
This is Alia. So I'm on my phone and I'm trying to figure out how to use the phone. So what came to my mind is something that I shared a while ago when Ali and Rana were young. And we were going to a picnic, and I had this big Tupperware that I have filled with sliced apples. And those apples were definitely far beyond Ali and Rana's ability to eat. Like, it was meant for, like, a whole picnic of kids to eat. So within that, it happened that my kids were like 4 years old, that it was beside him. So every time the kids in the car, there were several, as the trip was still long, we didn't arrive, I would ask him to please, like, open the Tupperware and give, like, the kids in the car, like, apple slices. And at the beginning he was fine, but somewhere in the middle he became very upset, and he said, why am I the only one who's giving, and why should I be giving? Like, and that just like struck me, like, this whole Tupperware is beyond your, like, he's a child, like, obviously I bought it, obviously I cut it, obviously I gave it to him, and it wasn't intended for him, it's for everyone. But then I realized that it's exactly what we do when we're in stage one, like, when we feel like, oh, I've got burnt out of doing this too much. A lot of people who work for different causes, they get this burnt out feeling that I've been doing it, no one else is doing it but me, and and it feels such a burden.
Or I am doing it, therefore I deserve to be rewarded.
Yes. And obviously there's no reward. But if we could take ourselves from that stage into the other stage where, like, he's a child, but then, like, that I'm so glad that I was chosen to be the one who gives the apples. It feels so good to give apples. Like, it feels so good. And this I've seen in kids in Eid, when their parents give them candy and ask them to give around to people in the Eid, like Musalla. So the kids become so happy that they are the ones who are giving out candy. So, like, they're even happier than receiving the candy. They want to give out candy. they feel like it tastes good to give out, to be like, to taste that sweet. They know they don't own these sweets, they don't claim them. So we start to give kids the sweets and tell them to give it out, because it makes them more happy to give out. And if we could be in that second stage where we are enjoying the taste of what we've been chosen to give out, and we've been chosen to, like, if we could be in that mindfulness awareness that we are at a privilege to be chosen to give out, then it will taste differently. And I like what Isra, you said earlier about don't allow yourself to be bullied. Don't allow. So I think one of the things that gets us into that burnt out stage also is when things go over your comfort level, when it comes to your dignity, how you'd like people to speak to you, whether those people are people that you respect very highly because they are your buddies, that are teaching you, or like, part of your faith community. If you feel that they're stepping over boundaries that make you feel hurt, I think your role as a dignified creature of God is to let them know, how do you feel? A lot of times we try to conceal it in a different way that pains us, which I don't think is healthy. So anyway, so I have these two examples that came to my mind as when you feel like the child, it's like a childish behavior, like I'm giving, it hurts so much, versus I'm so happy that I've been given the chance to share what was given to me. And I think like it takes a lot of practice thinking that way, but the more we talk that way, the more we think, like the more we are like using this language amongst ourselves. Maybe that could be our homework, finding times through this week where, like, things that we're doing or happening to us, and actually stopping and pausing and saying, did I do this? Which, what was done upon me? Which names did I see being like, which names did I taste when this was done?
Thank you.
Now I'm going to try to mute myself. Yes, I got it.
Thank you.
Maybe on a related note, one of the sisters wrote in the chat as a comment, as a private comment, and asked me to read it. She said, how do you handle people who abuse you when you're trying to help them? This is the biggest challenge. I've gotten to a point of keeping to myself more and more because I focus on helping others to a flaw. I will focus on community help, but doing that, my house becomes chaotic and I feel more of the fatigue and feelings of resentment at times. How do you deal with challenges, especially when everyone's heart is not in the same place? I wanted to read it, Dr. Yamina. I don't know if you wanted to take it now or later.
It's not about now and later. It's about in order to act wisely, because no one other than the person who is inside the situation is going to be able to say exactly, this is what you do, this is what you say. That person will have to find that that's being open to receiving that guidance and wisdom, that you are guided in that seemingly messy and chaotic situation where things start getting clearer. Now, we need to first come there. So one thing that I, maybe you heard me say again and again, and it is also something I learned from Imam Nursi rahimahullah. So he says, in every situation there are three aspects. One that looks to us, and that's our responsibility. And one that looks to the others, whatever the situation outside is. And that if they are people, it's their responsibility. If it is something in the world, unless we can do something about it, then it looks to us. Otherwise, we can't, we may not be able to change it. So it's not our responsibility. That's what. And there is a third one, which is whatever is happening to us is happening by divine will. And if God is creating it right now, if he's willed it, then it is not without wisdom. It is not without mercy. It is, if I am not seeing the mercy and the wisdom and the purpose in what's going on, it is because I'm not looking for them. It's usually because we forget about that vertical dimension of things that I was trying to attract the attention in this hadith as well. The hadith is telling us that there is a dimension when you are helping the others, there is a dimension that looks to God and to Akhirah, right? It's very explicit, but we tend to forget it and take it as not organically related, but ad hoc, we add it at the end. You help and Allah will help you. Okay, so, but I never testified that. I never witnessed that connection. So here it's the same. So the aspect that looks to the other, we will only be able to deal with it when we are clear about our responsibility. And we are clear about our responsibility and we start seeing things for what they are when we remember, when we keep in mind in our perspective, perception, yeah, it is, then our perspective will change. The perspective of qadar, of the dimension that looks to God. When I keep that in mind, so it's going to take a while, especially in the beginning, I have to stop and reflect. And if people are involved, and especially when people are involved and there is frustration and things like that, start praying for the others. And I'm going to tell you the why. The wisdom in praying for the others is we don't want that noise to come in and how do you say, start interfering in my perceiving things how they are, because I can't see things for what they are. It means the purpose of the creation of what's going on right now. If I keep already, I have a pre-understanding, a pre-judgment that this is what's going on, these people are doing this to me, and it could be right, but I can never open their heart and see, as the Prophet ﷺ said. So it's not up to me to say why, what they are doing. I look not at why they are doing it, but only at what they are doing. What they are doing, when I look at it as created right now with purpose and wisdom, it's going to change. Then I can take a stand and I can act with wisdom, not with anger. If there is anger, my anger will transform into, oh, maybe there is something that is unacceptable here. So what should be done about it? Instead of getting angry, anger can be something that weakens us. But when anger is not something that emotionally breaks me down, but it's I see it as a message, as an ayah, messenger bringing me news that this is unacceptable, you cannot accept this, this is unjust, this is whatever the reason, then that anger, I say, thank you, I got the message. I am not acting angry. I got the message from anger, from whatever, and now I'm acting with wisdom, with mercy, and with mercy does not mean necessarily that I'm going to sometimes mercy may mean to stop something wrong going on, but not with emotionally with anger, and so I stop a wrong with another wrong, if you see what I mean. But exactly how it's going to be done, the person, the more you become aligned with, through reflection, and open to that guidance, that whatever is happening now is happening, there is guidance in it, there is wisdom in it, there is mercy in it for me, the more you will start feeling it in your heart, and the more you will start acting accordingly. In the beginning, old habits are still there, but the more there is reflection and intention to act accordingly, things will change. Now, together with this, something that we can all, inshallah, take as an assignment that we can start from tonight, which is helping, whatever we are helping, whatever we are giving, as in the Quran, often it's giving others, or giving. So the giving here, whatever the object is, it could be something material, it could be immaterial, it could be a service, it could be a kind word, it could be. When we are giving to others, and starts with greeting people in your own household, in your neighborhood, it's not like, where am I going to practice this hadith? I'll have to find someone who's needy and then feed him and clothe him. That's definitely part of it. But until you find you are in that situation, there is a giving all the time. So whatever the object we are giving is, when we are giving, let's pause. If we do this in the morning after subh prayer and in the evening before we go to sleep, then it becomes very easy to do it right after we interact, and then inshallah as we are interacting. Because it concerns the ruh, it does not take time. If we have already practiced it, for instance, we had an interaction and then I went and paused and reflected about it. Next time, the more I reflect, next time I will live it, remember the soul, the heart, and the ruh will remember it as I am practicing it. And the ruh doesn't take time. It will remember all, because it is a feeling, a tasting of the divine name as it is happening. So this is the reflection that we are going to do. In the beginning, it's going to most probably be after things happen. The need, for instance, I saw someone in help. I saw a fault. Let's take it not a fault in character or something very like someone is wearing something that somewhere got ripped, or something more easier to notice. The need or the desire, because we see it as a desire, but the desire to help, to do something for the other, is a need in us. There is an urge, as we are told in the Quran, it's an urge. That need to give, to help. Well, first, the object that we are giving, we need to acknowledge that it is given to us, whether it's money, whether it's something material, food, whether it's a greeting, whether it's a kindness, whether it's a service, it is not from me. It is a gift to me that I'm sharing with the others. You can say, but I'm cleaning the place. For instance, it's a common place and I'm cleaning it. Yeah, but if I were sick, I would not be able to do anything. So my being able to clean is also. So the object that we are giving, we have to reflect and acknowledge that it is given to us. It is a gift to me that is also being given through me to others. It's being shared. And I'm only allowing it. It means if I have something that I'm doing good, is not the giving. It is I'm not stopping it, because I can stop, but I'm not stopping it. It's like my eye sees, it is created to see, and all I can do is close my eyes and I will see only the inner, like darkness. So the eye sees, but I can choose to see, open my eyes, keep them open and see, or close them and see darkness only. And so it is when I am giving. The second part that we need to reflect on is the need, the desire, the urge to help, to give. The more we reflect on this, the more we will realize that as I am giving, I am not the giver. I am being made to give. And we can even ask ourselves, just like I always say, like reflect 3 minutes, 2-3 times a day, 3 minutes, and just breathe and just watch yourself breathing and wonder with awe at who is breathing life into me. Where is this life coming? That is my Rabb. The more I ask that question, I will know in me, I am actually the Ruh, we are created with the knowledge of God. However, we forget it and we say, I am doing, it's my life, I am. And when I do this reflection and listen to my breathing, I will feel the awe. There is a giver of life. This life is a gift. I will feel it with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my everything. That is the knowing that God is the giver of life. He is the sustainer of my life right now. No, knowing it is not enough. I have to reflect. I have to witness it. I have to feel it. I have to taste it. In the same way, here we are going to say, who is helping when I'm helping? Who is making me help? Who is giving me this longing, this desire? Suddenly, I find in myself a wish, a need to help. Suddenly, I find in myself a joy of having helped. The joy of having help is the joy of tasting the name helper. That's the name helper. We take it as the joy of the ego. I am a very good person. No, but when we reflect, it becomes a joy, a lasting joy of the Ruh. And that takes us directly to the names of God. And I'll ask the question to myself, who is helping? Where is this need coming from? Who is making me long to help? Who is filling me with the joy of helping? And then we realize that I am being made to help. And then only I can say, Alhamdulillah, praise, thanks and praise be to God alone. He is the generous one, the helper, the giver, the whatever the names. We don't even have to, how do you say, have a list, as long as we we feel it and acknowledge it. Now, the more we practice this reflection, then if this reflection involved, for instance, some work with other people where something is going on, something disturbing, then things start being clarified. It could be that I will still feel that, yes, I will help, and it has nothing to do with a certain person or certain people, because I'm not doing it for them. Or it could be that maybe this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe my helping is not here. My service is not here. Maybe it is another way I will spend my, maybe, for instance, I'm helping someone, but each time I give the money, and then I learn that the person is using the money to poison themselves with some drugs or something, then helping the person is not giving them the money. It's either giving them some other kind of help, or at least stop giving them that, because then I learned that this is not helping them. I want to help, but helping is not necessarily giving them money, for instance. But is the assignment clear? There are two steps in our reflection: what we are giving and our state of being that makes us give, and after we give. So it's not only what we are giving to the other person, but how we feel about it, how we feel that we feel the need to do it, and then when we do it, how we feel about it. And this is going to take us, we will ask who is the helper when I'm helping? Who is the concealer of fault? And how he is concealing my faults and everyone's faults, and feeling that, that gratitude. That's very important. That's the gist of ubudiyah, of worship, is that gratitude, and it is wisdom. That's what wisdom is. And that's the shahada in that particular thing. We will be able to, inshallah, make shahada, and our iman, our knowing God, will increase each time from a different perspective, different names of God. And it will get more and more grounded, more and more rooted. And we will start feeling the reward of paradise here and now, the seeds, the signs of it right here and now. So this could be, inshallah, our assignment. Let's start whatever we do, we give, we help. And that could start to say, I don't have anyone around me. Well, greeting someone, saying something kind, try it. If you usually only say, hi, how are you? Or salam alaikum. Next time, this week, start asking something unusual, and you will see how most people will open up in ways, subhanallah. You see that you can witness there the channel of the barakah, the blessing, the help flowing, and how people respond to it, how we are all so thirsty, so hungry for that help, for that compassion, for that. And we'll see how there will be little miracles everywhere, and how this is not only a social person's paradise, but everyone who puts a little bit of intention and effort, paradise, inshallah. It is an active lifestyle, but not active necessarily socially. It is active internally, primarily internally. The social part is only the tip of the iceberg. All this reflection and it's something we don't see from outside. But the action, the word that comes out is only the tip of the iceberg. If there is no iceberg down there, then it is like it's not rooted. It won't last. And even if it lasts in this world, it won't bear fruits of in the hereafter. I'll stop, and inshallah, please, you don't have to ask questions. It could be your comments, how you feel about it. Would you like to commit to start practicing this assignment, which is really, we're trying to apply this hadith.
Yes, so are there any comments at this time? Is the assignment being accepted? Is the mission accepted?
So what exactly is the assignment?
What is the assignment? In this week, until next week, we are to intend to see if we can give more, and in the act of giving, most importantly, to see if we can
Give more intentionally, you mean?
Yeah, witness. Well, give more in the sense of, you know, when you said asking people more deeply, that's also increasing,
Yeah,
how we connect with others. So, and to, in the act of giving, to see the beautiful names of God, and to make that event as a means of recognizing the beautiful names of God.
but like I gave, because you won't be able to see the beautiful names of God if it's only information. I'm not talking about information. I'm saying there are two stages. One is the object that I'm giving, whether it's a word or something physical, food or clothes or something. Whatever I'm giving, acknowledge that this is given to me, and I'm asked to give it to others. So I'm sharing. So it is a reminder that I am given. What I'm wearing, what I'm eating is also a gift. Even if I had all the money in the world, if there was no food growing, I wouldn't be able to make it. So acknowledge this. The second step is to acknowledge that the need, the desire to help, and the joy after helping are also given. So pause, stop, not while you are doing it. In the beginning, we won't be able to do it while we're giving, but right after, whenever we have the time, pause, reflect. How do I feel about it? Where did that need come from? Where did that joy of sharing and giving come from? Who is giving when I'm giving? Who is helping when I'm helping? Who is making me help? What is the taste? What is the joy that I'm feeling? It is the joy of the name helper, of the name generous, of the name compassionate. Stay with that gratitude, with that joy, with that awe. Appreciate them. Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah, Tabarakallah, whatever words you have, participate in the tasbih that is being made in that interaction. And then the more we do this, the more as we are giving, when we say Bismillah, when we are giving, all this will come, because the ruh will have tasted the name. So when we say Bismillah, all this will be, it will associate it with that reflection. That's why we say it's called dhikr, remembrance. It will remember, the ruh, the qalb, remember. And so we will start giving more consciously, more in the name of God. And it is like an avalanche of goodness, inshallah, and of increasing iman, increasing shahada, increasing ubudiyah, increasing affirmation of oneness, tawheed, because I am not the, if I don't do this, there is always the door is open to, without realizing, I am acting as though I am giving. I'm giving, I'm sacrificing, and I did something good. Inshallah, Allah will give me in akhirah. But in this one, when I am giving, I'm not sacrificing anything. It reminds me how much more I am given, that He's the giver of everything. He's the giver here in this world and the next. He doesn't give only to me, but all my beloved friends and family and even animals and everything. He is the provider, and that is the reward here in this world and in akhirah. So I can also testify to the truth of this, the message of this hadith and the message of many, many passages in the Quran. Does it make sense?
Yes, Jazakallah khair. I wanted to mention, offer a comment. There's a Turkish classical poet who said, in translation, Yunus Emre, who said, I have found the honey of the honey, and I'll let go of my beehive. That's what I thought of when you talked about beautiful names of God. What I mean by that is that once we are able to see that the beautiful names of God are manifesting in us, that we are being taken care of, we are being given, and then us giving, we are also witnessing those names, then we realize that we don't have to worry about piecing together little things and trying to make a wealth for ourselves or trying to hold on to something. First of all, it's not possible to hold on. Even the richest person has no guarantee about anything. And also we find that when we find the beautiful names of God, then we find it's okay if what the resources I have are not enough, they are not sufficient, they're passing, but it's okay, because in the act of giving or whatever other kindness that I am made to do, I am witnessing that there is the source, the endless source. So that becomes very, very joyful, that it's okay to, I think we can, for myself, I can stop worrying about whether I will be taken care of. And in all the conflicts between between people,
and that's why, actually, that's why we worry about our livelihood and all things. It's because we want to guarantee our life, and which is totally, how do you say, a valid need that we have. But now we will be able to trust and make tawakkul, because we will know that it is being taken care of, whether through giving me a job and making so-called livelihood, or through something else. Those things are not goals, they are not ends in themselves, they are only means, and Allah gives through many means. I won't focus on the means anymore. When we are not clear about our relationship with God and we can't trust Him fully, to that extent we give importance to the means, and that's where shirk enters. Because I think if I don't have this job, this money, this salary, then I will be hungry, and seems totally makes sense. But who said that that's the only, not everyone has a salary, other people have other means. Allah gives من حيث لا يحتسب, from different ways. What matters is the end goal, is that He is the provider. And He provided for us in ways that money can take care. My breathing, money doesn't take care of it. The most important thing are not with money, for instance. So that's for, I like the breathing because my nafs, my ego, just shuts up. If I'm not breathing, so what if you have wealth or you don't? So you understand, oh, okay, so wealth, it doesn't mean that we don't need it, but when we need it, it is coming. It is a means, it is not the end goal of our life. So it becomes easier to deal with those issues as well that we have, our anxieties and fears, and inshallah.
Inshallah, and we can confirm the reward.
Yeah.
Because we found the source.
Yeah. Yes, alhamdulillah. Can you imagine? But we need that every time. It's not like once I found it and then, because each time when I have a fear, that fear is a reminder, that reminding me of my need. But we take it as it's reminding me of my need for money, for this, for that. No, it's reminding me of my need for the real source, the only source. Everything else is only a means to it, an ayah, a reminder to it. And when I am not aware of that, I start getting stuck in the means, and that's the path to shirk, and it's the path to anxiety and fear, and nothing can ever be satisfying because we long for the true, unending, eternal, all-encompassing source of everything. Only with the remembering of God do human hearts find tranquility and fulfillment and satisfaction.
Okay, so maybe we can stop on that note, unless if there are anyone who would like to make a comment at this time. All right, so if not, then inshallah we are going to stop here, and inshallah we'll meet next week. And in the meantime, we will work on our assignment. If you would like to revisit this recording, or you would like to revisit earlier recordings, you can go to YouTube, is Receiving Nur YouTube channel, which is also included in our Receiving Nur weekly newsletter as a link. But if you go to YouTube and type Receiving Nur channel, you should be able to find that as well. And also the registration for the retreat is continuing, and the early registration ends next week, on the 15th of November. So consider joining us in December, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Yamina.
Thank you. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.